Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl. He is Alex. Lord, the Atlanta Braves have continued their losing ways against the Baltimore Orioles, and Alex Anthopoulos felt it was necessary this week to take Brian Snitker's spot ahead of the pregame on Wednesday and talk about kind of the state of the thing. And he didn't say too much. He kind of gave you the same Alex Anthopoulos. He said, they have been a little bit more active in trade talks. Nothing is imminent, which is kind of something we've discussed this far away from the trade deadline. Do not expect any major moves for a number of reasons. He also talked about the National League and how outside of like the Phillies and the Dodgers and maybe the Brewers, you could say in the NL Central, the division leaders, the wild card teams, the Braves still sit pretty healthily in front of the rest of the NL because there's only 4 teams in the National League. I believe only 4 teams that are over 500. So despite being that bad and playing as poorly as the Braves do, they're still in good standing to make the postseason, which is really the ultimate goal when you don't have their 2 best players. Get in the dance. And if you get in the dance and you're playing your best baseball, come October, you're going to have a chance to win the World Series. And the Braves know that better than anyone, considering they've been bounced in the first round despite winning 100-plus games in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, that 2021 team that won the World Series was infinitely worse than the team that was last year. Now in October, ball plays a little bit differently. But, look at the Diamondbacks. Look at the Phillies when they went and made the World Series. So, looking at the best teams in baseball and you're just counting on a Dodgers-Yankees World Series, you better think again.
They would love that. The MLB media would love that.
They've been trying to get
this
that sport needs that, honestly.
They've been trying to get a Dodgers-Yankees World Series for years, and both those teams love
to make it.
They love choking in the playoffs, just like the Atlanta Braves love choking in the playoffs. So, if you look at just since the playoffs have expanded, and I have actually talked about this, I don't know if we talked about in the show, but to other people, like the odds of anybody going back to back, like you used to have runs where like the Yankees would go back to back to back because there was 3 teams that made the playoffs. And then before that, it was 2, and you'd have a bunch of teams winning back to back because there was only so many teams. Now that you have 12 teams making the playoffs in a sport like baseball, where it's such a crapshoot. It's such a crapshoot. The odds of a team going back to back these days is almost impossible to do. Like the odds, you're not going to see that. In the 2 seasons since the playoffs has expanded, the 6th seed in the National League has made the World Series both times. So it like, as much as you don't want to say it, because I do put a lot of emphasis on the division, I think it's something you should be proud of, even if you don't win the World Series. Definitely. I think people that just say, oh, it doesn't matter. But it only
matters. The only people who say that are the people who don't win the division.
Yeah. As far as the World Series go, they do have a point because it really doesn't matter. And we've seen that time and time again. I mean, the Dodgers and the Braves have been the first round buys in both seasons and haven't made it out of the NLDS. And we've talked about it. The first round buy, I don't think is an advantage. I straight up do not think it is an advantage. Like you take that time off in a sport like baseball, it does not do you justice. And we've seen that since the playoffs has expanded.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get a real good look at that because at this point, I don't want to, doom, gloom, pessimism, but it looks like the Phillies are going to run away with this division because it doesn't look like the Braves can get out of their way. Matt Olson, the Bats finally, hold up their end of the bargain. Not really. 4 runs, I guess, is not really holding
up.
They
had 2 runs. They lost 4-2.
Oh my goodness gracious!
You're saying
we get 2 runs.
Saying they finally held up their end of the bargain when they scored 2 runs.
We tie the game 2-2 with a Matt Olson 2-run home run, and Joe Jimenez in this Braves bullpen that has been very reliable, hasn't really had the opportunity to notch many saves, comes up short. Joe Jimenez gives up a 2-run home run. So it just feels like it's just not the Braves' time right now in the season. Everything just is going against them, whether it's bad luck, bad approach, difficult pitcher. I mean, we're not even facing good pitchers. That's the most pathetic thing, is we're facing like 4A guys who are coming up and having career starts against this Atlanta Braves offense. But I think, in terms of going back to Alex Anthopoulos' words, he went out there for a reason. He didn't have to go out there and take the media's questioning. He probably didn't want to either because he is watching the same games we are. And he knows that he has to go out there and kind of calm the waves, calm the storm, be like, these guys are better than that. I know we're not playing very well right now. And he goes, I'd be concerned if we were an aging core. And when he says we're a talented young core that's going to get out of this. Am I trying to do everything I can to inject some life into this team? Of course, he said, but the possibilities at this juncture in the season just aren't that, they're not that fruitful right now. And that's not to say it won't, kick up, because it's absolutely going to kick up as we approach July. But right now, Alex Anthopoulos is basically telling you this is the team we've got right now. So we've got to look inward at ourselves and pick our own selves up by our own bootstraps. And that was effectively what I got. He says the trade deadline is coming. He basically hinted that there will be acquisitions made. It just can't happen right now for a myriad of reasons. But right now, we got to look inward. We got to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps.
Yeah, I mean, there's 0% chance the Braves don't add a lot at the trade deadline. I've been saying that, like, they are not going to just get one outfielder. They're going to get multiple outfielders. They're probably going to look to try to upgrade at shortstop, whether that's internally with a guy like Nacho Alvarez or whether that's externally and try to bring someone out because Orlando Arcia has become an automatic out. I've told you about Jared Kelenic. I know people wanted to say, oh, Jared Kelenic, like he could be an everyday player. The guy cannot hit left-handed pitching. He's not an everyday player. It's that simple.
We need to platoon the both corner outfield spots is exact. And then if a hot hand comes up, just like 2021 did, then play the hot hand. But at this juncture, Adam Duvall and Jared Kelenic need to be platooning by themselves. And then the other corner outfield spot needs to be platooning by itself. Unless you get a guy, a worthwhile guy like that can start every single day. But, the likelihood of a star acquisition, unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you get a guy like Jorge Soler that turns it around and he can start every day and win the World Series MVP or something like that. But yeah, go out there and get 4 outfielders and then play the hot hands and play the matchups and see how it goes. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's that difficult. They're going to add multiple guys, but as Alex Anthopoulos said, and I listen, there are some moves that right now, a couple years ago looked great on Alex Anthopoulos ends that you could start to question. I'm not going to do that yet because we're only 65 games into the season. I'm still going to say Alex Anthopoulos is a great GM, even though some of those moves aren't looking as good as they did maybe a year ago. But I will say Alex Anthopoulos does have a very good pulse on the fan base. He does understand that the fan base matters, and that's why he was up there ready to go in the firing range and answer questions. And the one thing you have to say about him is, like, he seems very genuine when he's talking about these things. Like, he's not BSing you. He's telling you the truth. He's not going to get into negotiations about trades or contracts, whatever it may be, but he's very upfront and straightforward with you. And it's something that I think is just another one of those things that he's really good at that matters as a general manager, because you do have a job to sit in front of the fans and answer questions when things aren't going your way. And you're the best person to do that. Not Brian Snicker, not the players. They need to be focused on baseball. You are the guy who's like, that's one of those things that he's helping out the team, by doing that.
Yeah, I think, Braves fans do appreciate that transparency that Anthopolos operates with. Now, obviously, the Braves are notorious for keeping everything close to the vest, but when he can, provide information and kind of try and ease worries or, vice versa, he's more than willing to, provide information. And I think that's exactly, he went into the line of fire kind of for his guys. He's like, he went up there for Snit, for his players, so they didn't have to answer these questions. That he was like, hey, these guys are good. They're going to get out of it. I'm doing all I can to try and work the phone, see how I can improve this team, and we're going to be just fine. And I think, losing the game right after that doesn't help. If they had won that game, it would have eased even more concerns. But I think, we're just at that point that this Braves team, as currently constructed, is not very good, but that's not to say that it can't be improved, especially at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, they better be improved. That's all I can say, because it's been terrible. I mean, they are one of the worst teams in baseball right now, and that's not even just hyperbole. That's absolute facts. They are playing like one of the worst teams. They're the Miami Marlins right now. I didn't imagine we would ever be saying that. Coming up after the break, the Falcons receive their punishment for the Kirk Cousins dilemma.